Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We're doing our 2024 top 10 outfielders. It started off as a too soon thing, and now it's not too soon because of life.
I mean, it still is when you really think. Spring training hasn't started yet. There's a lot that's going to change.
Yep.
So, yes.
Well, before he started talking, I was going to introduce him because he deserves it. So welcome, Joe Bond, our boss and our top ranker. Thank you for joining us on this show that is all about you.
It's all about me. I like that. As I joked yesterday when I was going on PitchCon, Nando was saying how because me, Nando DeFino, and Van were the three presenters together, and he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna present some sleepers and busts, and one of Joe's busts could take up the whole hour." So I joked and I went, "Yeah, welcome to my TED Talk. Apparently, these are my TED Talks. So let's go."
Yeah, no problem. So before we start off, we'll quickly go through. Hey, come on down, become a Fantasy Six Pack subscriber. Come down to fantasysixpack.net. And you can become a subscriber, all access member, and you can do that with the promo code and get 15% off today. And you have all types of great, things there, along with the Discord and everything else. And also, if you're thinking, even possibly thinking of having a league this year, we why wouldn't you, right?
If you're playing somewhere else and aren't really pleased, because
there you go. Yes, well, I moved six of my 300 leagues to Fantrax this year, and we tell you to please try doing that. It's just the customization's fantastic. It's really deep, and they have some of the best support. And without me going on any further tangents, let's get ready to rumble on the top 10 outfielders by talking about the outside the top 10. And this is all based on the top 10 outfielder list where Joe went through all the top 10 and we're on the outfield. You can find this on fantasysixpack.net. But I want to start off by making fun of you, Joe. Not really. I'm making fun of the MLB Network top 10 list. And there's two things here. One, and I've said it again, and I cannot stop saying this, is because it is getting just blasted on Twitter. All types of people just putting capital letters. And I'm going to just start off with it also being not very accurate either, because the top three outfielder here is Bryce Harper. Now, one, this is not really good for fantasy leagues because they have it set as right field, left field, center field. Ugh. Let's just be honest. We're doing this as one outfield because most leagues don't have, the right field, center field, left fielder. But Bryce Harper at number 3, Joe, and I'd say this knowing the answer, why don't you have Bryce Harper listed in your top 10?
So he's not outfield eligible anymore for fantasy baseball.
Why is that, Joe?
He may have played a whopping 0 games out there last year. So there you go.
Correct. That is correct. Very good.
First base. Although it's weird because if you go to Fangraphs, they still have him listed as outfield over there. So you're going to have to update that. But he is no longer outfield eligible. You may think of it. It's weird. Like I had to go, wait, I know he played a lot of first base, but wait, he's really, really not actually outfield eligible at all. I don't know. Like it could be the thing because he DH so much that maybe fantasy leagues are going to leave him in outfield. I don't know, but like by all the rules that I've ever followed, he's not eligible. Like you have to play 20 games season before, unless you have injuries. But he played a lot last year, so that doesn't.
I mean, even if we lower the bar to 15 games, he still isn't eligible. So it's that's just lazy. And I'm MLB Network. I'm sorry, guys. You need to adjust that. That's just silliness. All right. I'm going to actually lump in, and I can't believe I'm doing this, Trout and Buxton as why didn't you have them ranked in your top 10? Because, and I'm going to bring this up real quick. I didn't know this, and I'm blown away by this, and I know you're going to bring this up. Buxton and Trout played this roughly the same number of games the last 3 years. I mean, I didn't actually bother calculating it because it goes 36, 119, 82 for Trout. And then Buxton goes 61, 92, 85. Wow. That blew my mind. So I'm probably, completely stole your thunder here, but just why didn't you rank?
You can have it. No, I it's weird, man. Look, we know, right, that Trout has missed time, a lot of time, over the last few seasons, but it seems to not get as as much attention as a guy like Buxton, right? Who has almost seemingly never been healthy. It feels right. To where Trout, super good, super consistent, always one of the best players when he's on the field, MVPs, you name it, he did it, right? And look, you can't argue when he's on the field, even now. Like, yes, the speed is nowhere to be found anymore, sadly.
Yep.
But even when he's on the field, like, I mean, he's just crushing the ball. I mean, he hit 40 home runs in 119 games in 2022. Like, that was insane. You got a full season out of him in stats, and you didn't even need to actually have him play a full season. I mean, it was bonkers.
Right.
Last year, maybe not quite the same pace, but still pretty damn good. Like, if this guy can put a full season together, we're talking he's going to hit 35 to 40 home runs probably. He's going to bat in the high, they have projections around 260, like that. But I know he dropped last year. I just think, he's been too good. Like, I don't know. I didn't really dig into Trout that much. I just know, obviously, I could ramble on about this, but both these guys, like, they get pushed down because of the injury. Basically, that's all there is to it.
Yeah, I mean, goodness, if I could get 40 home runs out of 500 plate appearances, that's amazing. I just don't know if I want to hang my hat on it, but I am going to show you too that Trout's not necessarily also hitting the ball as well as he used to, right? We're going to talk about Mike Curlin on Twitter. He's always on the show. Mike calls out Mike Trout as one of the top barrel percentage fallers over the year. And that's minus 3.7%. That's not nothing
right now.
I mean, you're looking at Anthony Rizzo, Schwarber, and then Trout. You don't want to be on that list. And when you also have the injury history and you're not hitting that quality contact, that's not a good thing. So, all right. So let's go to the actual top 10 lists. Now that we've been all over the place, we've been to the bad with Harper not even being an outfielder, somehow being ranked in Trout and Buxton. Let's talk about your top 10. Number 10, sir, Luis Robert. The reason why I say, is because I know you can talk about injuries here, but you didn't talk about, Trout had injuries, and we're talking about Luis Robert. Where's the tiebreaker?
This one, I'll be honest with you, there was probably 5 or 6 guys that I could have easily put at number 10. I put Robert on there because, like, man, if he could stay healthy, right? And he did last year for the most part. I mean, he got 38 home runs, 100, in 145 games last year, stole 20 bases, batting averages, did drop a little bit, similar to Trout. The White Sox were an absolute train wreck last year, and he still was able to do that on that team. If you just think that they take even a small step forward, get Eloy, talking about injuries, Eloy needs to stay healthy, right? If that guy could figure it out, if like, you name it on that team, they were bad last year, right? And so Robert was the one bright spot. He's a lot younger, right? So you kind of hope that, you sometimes see this with guys coming in, right? They get injured, and then they learn how to take care of their body, right?
Right.
And then they go on these like long stretches, years and years of playing much healthier baseball. Outside of the UCL thing with Harper, that was kind of Harper's bugaboo early too, right? He was always running into the wall, and doing stupid stuff and just beating up his body. And now, outside of like this almost not freakish injuries, but just injuries that aren't like reoccurring, right?
Right.
I think, he's learned how to take care of his body. And now at age 26, you hope that Robert can figure that out.
And the thing is too, is that again, Trout's pretty much it at the Angels. I mean, yes, I know it's not the only person, but there's nobody protecting him. Or, you could just, if he does end up on a heater, right, you can just walk him if you want to. And the thing is, he's not stealing bases. So, there's a very fine line here with which way Trout can go, where Robert can do a lot of things here. I mean, they're projecting him for 33 home runs and 20 stolen bases with 90 plus runs and 100 plus RBI. Yeah, sure. All day. I'll take that. The one thing that I did want to say is, and John Anderson, John PGH on Twitter, he was one of the top 10 OBP league decliners. You don't want to be on that list, along with Michael Harris and Bubba Chet leading it off, of course. I almost said Boba Fett, but Boba Fett again. Man, I'm a Star Wars geek. And I don't even like it that much. Yeah, but yeah. So that's the only things. I mean, it's not written in stone by any means, but it's definitely something that to watch out for. But I do love Luis Robert. Now, number 9 surprised me. Go ahead, sir.
Let's see here.
Yordan Alvarez.
Surprised you in a good way or a bad way? Like you thought he'd be not in the top 10 or?
Yeah. So, the thing is that it surprised me initially. And then I start seeing the numbers on your list here. And yeah, I might maybe quibble on where Yordan is versus the next 3. But then I was like, who would I move down? And you know what? That's the thing. It was one of those things where initially I was like, Yordan Alvarez is too low. And then I'm like, is he though?
I had a guy on Twitter actually get on my case about Robert, and I was like, I wasn't even going to put him in my top 10, but like, how am I going to put him higher? Like, I can't put him ahead of any of the guys in front of him right now. I get it. Like, he's got the talent, but there are the risks involved. Alvarez, though, I mean, I love him as a player, but there is absolutely no steals with him. But I mean, he's probably one of the best hitters in baseball, really. Like
absolutely.
Power, his contact rate, he walks a lot, he doesn't strike out a ton. So OBP leagues, he's even going to get a bigger bump. It's just, this guy is a masher, but he's also got slight injury concerns too. He's he does get banged up too.
Not slight. I mean, he does. I mean, he gets injured. I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's talk about him having to DH and not play at the field at all because they're so scared about him getting injured. And last year he only played 114 games. But doing the Trout thing that we talked about earlier, right? 114 games and hit 31 bombs. Right. I mean, that's not nothing, especially in that loaded Astros lineup. But again, the thing is, you start talking about those issues and the fact that he has absolutely no stolen bases, which again is okay with the bat that Alvarez has. But if he gets injured and it hurts somewhere on his arm, his wrist, somewhere else that messes that up, suddenly we don't have that error margin like I was talking about with Trout. And that concerns me greatly. But again, that upside, if he could play the 135 games.
I know. I mean, I put a stat in the article over on Fantasy Six Pack. Like we obviously know the power is unquestioned. I mean, he hit the 31 bombs, like you said.
Right.
It was 114 games. He was number 8 last year in slugging if he had been eligible. But that's the point, is he wasn't even eligible to like win batting awards. He finished second in 2022. So he's been one of the best power hitters in baseball the last 2 years. I mean, the only guy he finished second to in 2022 was, did you know?
Oh, I'm sorry. I've just Ronald Acuna. 2022. No, not Acuna. That would have to be. Why am I going blank here?
A whole lot of home runs in 2022. Set a record.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Judge, obviously.
Yeah, Aaron Judge. So yes, he put up a very historic season. It just was like out of this world good in 2022. But Alvarez was right there with him, man. So we know the power is there. He's going to hit for a great average. Again, that Astros lineup is loaded. And so, you're just taking him and just crossing your fingers he stays healthy. I mean,
but can we just circle that one more time? The fact that with 21 less play games played, right? Almost 70 less plate appearances, because like you said, the Astros lineup is so loaded. He has this exact same number of RBIs. That just tells you. I mean, professional hitter through and through. Wow. All day. Yes, I am absolutely. And again, I think we're quibbling here. I think it's just one of those situations where, 10, 9, 8, 7. I mean, 6. This first 5, right? Or sorry, last 5, whatever. We're quibbling it. I mean, if you have any of these guys, you're fine.
you are setting you're setting the table pretty good for your team if you're able to land one of these guys early on. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys are all going in the first round or first 2 rounds, obviously. So it's going to be very, very hard to get 2 of them. So
yeah, but real quick, going back here, I just wanted, because I knew you were about to bring up ADP, and I never know the ADP, but having Alvarez 60-ish, points higher than or lower, whatever, than Robert. I mean, that's nuts to me.
CBS?
That's CBS.
Holy cow.
Well, as of 6 days ago, but I mean, what's really changed? But wow. I mean, Joe Orico, Oracle. I mean, wow, man. I mean, you have Carroll there. Who, I mean, we'll talk about probably. What? That's mind blowing to me. Mind blowing stuff. I won't harper on it. I purposely said harper on it anymore. So let's go number 8.
All right.
Mr.
Juan Soto.
So you're not a big believer then that Juan's going to go just crazy in Yankee Stadium and just run all over the place and do all those things? As I set you up.
Again, it's another one of those, like, he's an awesome player. Don't get me wrong. He's not, he doesn't have the speed potential of some of the guys above him. There's a couple of guys still ahead of him that, that aren't like super speedsters, but for the most part, everybody up there is going to be able to get you some steals. That hurts him. And, look, the biggest thing carrying Soto's value, especially in his early years, was that just incredible batting average. Of course, he still has the really high OBP, but even that's dropped. Power, he hit more bombs last year. He set a career high in home runs. That's probably going to be his ceiling, even in Yankee Stadium. I'm just, I'm not going to just buy into like, oh, he's going to play for the Yankees, and so he's going to hit 45. Like, nah, I don't know about that. I mean, this is Juan Soto. It is a very, very good player. Like, all these guys are so good. Like, again, everybody on this list is going in the first 2 rounds of every draft. ADP be damned of what you just found. I don't believe it. I do not believe I will have a single draft where I'm going to find Yordan Alvarez in the almost the 4th round. That's bonkers to me.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, going back to it, right? It's just the fact is that we're talking about a 24-year-old played all 162 games, so no injury concerns here. I mean, of course, freak injuries happen all the time. 35, 97. I think the RBIs and the runs are probably going to go up in the Yankees lineup. But I mean, he gets 12 steals versus the last guy who didn't. I mean, this is why we're quibbling at this point, right? Yordan Alvarez didn't have any steals, but still, would I be happy with, Soto or Alvarez? Yeah. Okay. And let's flip a coin. I mean, at that point,
I don't know where that list came from. So I pulled the ADP numbers because we just launched the cheat sheets a couple days ago.
Yep.
So I wanted to pull that up because I was like, really? That didn't, I kind of, some weird stuff popped out on me.
All right.
Noticed, make me guess. Andrew McCutcheon was like 16. He must have been drafted like once. And so they haven't like figure that out, how to like not have, it's got to be like an average out of all your drafts, right? All possible drafts.
Sure.
So his ADP is a little wonky. But yeah, here's Yordan Alvarez's ADP on CBS from where I pulled it is 12th. So that That sounds a lot better.
All right. And then, all right. So that's 12. So Soto, I'm assuming, is going to be 9, and Luis Robert is 20.
Robert is 31, actually.
I was way off. All right. Soto was 9? Soto was 9?
Guys, actually, like, again, a lot of outfielders sort of. Michael Harris is kind of was the big one for me that I kind of went back and forth on because the batting average for Michael Harris, and he doesn't have the health concerns I feel like that Robert has, and it plays for obviously
the Braves. Yeah,
that has a lot of factors. They were the ones I kind of went really back and forth on. Michael Harris's ADP is 32, so they're right there. But like it's really like after like the 8th or 9th outfielder, there's actually a pretty large gap. It's like a bunch of like infielders and stuff in the ADP. It looks like.
Oh wow. Okay.
It sort of just like stops.
Well, it's probably at that point it's a position of scarcity. So real quick, if you just draft strategy, if you haven't figured it out yet, if you miss on the first 5 outfielders, are we talking about a massive drop off to number 6? I mean, in the sense that, like, I remember a couple years ago, outfield was like top 3, and then there was a massive drop off. I mean, I'm not gonna be upset if I lose Soto if I can get Alvarez. I mean, again, not looking at ADP, just talking about strategy in general, right? Now, I mean, I might be a little bit to get to Robert because I personally like Alvarez more, but at the same time, it's not massive. Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Where am I gonna get my 30? Oh wait, they're the exact same number of home runs. But it's just one of those. It's just one of those things where it's like, from a strategy, I don't think you have to really, in these 6 to 10, I don't think you have to reach.
I agree. I think for me with the outfielders, obviously, I think the top 3 or 4, maybe 5. Are kind of like, well, maybe 6. Yep. Yeah, I think you're right. I think kind of the top 6, now that I'm looking at it, are kind of like, okay. However, one of those 6 has a different position eligibility, and you're probably not drafting him for the outfield, but he has the eligibility, so I got to put him on the list.
That's called foreshadowing. Number 7.
Let me get to it.
The Judge. Yep. I mean, the thing is that
it feels like a theme. Injury prone, right?
Right.
I hate to say it, but he is. He still can just absolutely hammer the ball, though.
What are you pulling that from? I mean, could he possibly hit 62? It's so out there. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? If he plays 157 games, put him up for 60 plus, something ungodly like another 160 home runs, and you put him in the top 3, no problem. But does he do it? I mean, it seemed like every time he got, came off the IL, he was back on the IL. It just
right. Look, I mean, power galore. We know that he's 62 home runs in 2022. Last year he was on pace for 53. Injuries got in the way, unfortunately. That and the Yankees weren't quite the Yankees. I mean, they were banged up all over the place. So like Stanton couldn't stay healthy, and even when he was, he looked like a shell of himself.
Shocker. Stanton couldn't stay healthy.
It's weird to say, and of course in 2022, like Rizzo had that great year for them. So like he wasn't really that great last year either. I mean, Torres was kind of the only other batter on that team that was like really worth a damn. Volpe came up and 2020 season, but he ultimately, he overall was not a very good hitter last year. Volpe was like, he went on really hot and super long cold streaks. Yep. And I think pitchers were just like, we're not giving you anything to hit, and it worked. And so like he saw a lot more outside pitches, and those are tough to really get a hold of. And so there you go. But Soto's coming to town now. That's going to be a huge boost.
And that's the thing, right? They had to make a move to protect him. And so there is the possibility for that higher end, but he still needs to stay healthy. But yeah, if it wasn't for Soto, then we would be talking about 2 things, right? That pitchers don't need to pitch to Judge, and he needs to stay healthy. Now it's just, he needs to stay healthy. The talent's there for days. I do want to just highlight one thing. because this is so important to kind of where we're drafting him. Aaron Judge and Drake on courtside at the New York Knicks game. I mean,
it's like the Taylor. Is this like the Taylor Swift version?
Well, the only difference is that Drake can really help Judge understand kind of the process of hitting and staying healthy. This is a really kind of gonna just propel him at least another. I mean, he's already being drafted in the first round, probably another 3 picks up. I mean, let's be honest, this is a huge deal for fantasy.
Yeah. And you know what? I this is probably a little more under the radar because it's not as big of a move, a big of a name. I mean, they got Alex Verdugo too. And he's a good hitter. Look, he's not gonna light the world on fire as far as fantasy, but he's a good, solid hitter.
Yep.
And now it's just somebody else in that lineup that can now fill a major gap.
At what point do they move him out of the outfield? It's what I'm starting to think. It's one of those things where they start maybe. Judge? Yeah. I mean, does he become a DH? I mean, his bat is too important. They can get gloves. You know what I mean? I love Stanton. Right, that's great, but he's going to play 20 games and get hurt, and then that DH needs to be Judge.
I think that's the problem is, you project Stanton at DH because he literally cannot play the outfield. Like if he tries to run at all longer than from one base to the other, he's going to pull a hamstring or something. So like you can't have him do that. So it's tough. But yeah, if Stanton weren't there, I kind of with you, man. They should just put Judge at DH. I mean, it's not like he's like super good outfielder anyway.
I mean, he definitely was, but I mean, again, his bat is so ridiculously good. I mean, so whatever 3x, 4x his WAR and defense, whatever he's saving, there's just no reason for it. Not a shot on Judge in any way, shape, or form. It's more just a fact of that's how good his bat is. Yeah. All right, so number 6, Kyle Tucker. Shocker. So I mean,
I don't think there's a whole lot of names from here on out that anybody's gonna be like, oh.
So, but this is awesome though, right? Because before it was always like, oh, there's 2 Astros. Now there's 2 Astros and 2 Yankees, almost back to back.
Yes,
that's the crazy part about. I mean, before
a sandwich here,
right? I mean, we're used to seeing a lot of Yankees in the lineup as well, but this is pretty incredible stuff. I mean, 27 years old in the set, he's finally no longer kind of has that injury prone, he was kind of getting that in 2021, but now he's played 140, 150, and then 157 games. We're expecting that plus a loaded Astros lineup, where he's going to get hit home apparently every game by Alvarez or vice versa. Right. What is there to kind of talk about other than the fact that he's Alvarez and he steals bases? So,
right. No, I mean, maybe not quite as much power as Alvarez.
Right. No. Yeah.
The one thing, and I wrote about this in the article too, was the one thing that always kind of held me back drafting Tucker, right, was the plate appearances. Yep. And it wasn't because he got injured, right? They were batting in 6th a lot, which was like, he's arguably the best hitter on the team, best player overall on that team, like even over Altuve and stuff like that. Like it was crazy, right? He was getting 30-14, 30-25 in like 500 plate appearances, 540 plate appearances, to where like guys getting drafted around him in fantasy leagues were getting 640 plate appearances. He's like almost 100 less, right? In those seasons. Last year he got up to 574. Or plate appearances, 674. So like finally got to that next level. They batted him, I think, 3rd a lot last year. I wonder how much of that was because they had injuries a lot, right?
Yeah, there's some games everybody was injured.
I'm slightly worried that he's going to slot back down into that like 6th role, maybe 5th at best. And that does limit how many times he gets up to bat. And obviously that limits opportunities to do anything. So it is something you've got to factor in with him. But I mean, even that, he's got obviously 30-30 potential. He missed it. I think he missed it by 1 home run. And it was like a weird, like in the park home run that they ended up scoring as a triple. on the very last game of the season, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, Frank, obviously a bum. I mean, how could he not get the 30-30? I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. The one thing though, like, we were talking about kind of additional metrics last year, was his launch angle kind of went up suddenly in 2022, and he corrected that in 2023, right? Went from 19 degrees to 14.8. And this is one of the first players that I remember that we've gone through that the average and expected batting average, his average is actually lower than his expecting batted average.
Right. Yeah.
And it's slugging, same thing. And it's been like that for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. So there's always room for improvement with Kyle Tucker.
Because his BABIP is low. It's weird. So that's what happens. But it's funny you say he corrected it, because he actually hit less home runs than more plate appearances. So it's like,
I don't know. Like
a little higher. I don't know. He's still a good player. He's going to give you all
look at this perfect baseball player, and please nitpick him. I mean, at a certain point,
it's so hard. I mean, look, he's just going to be an all-around contributor. It's just, I leave him at 6 because you got to worry about opportunity sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it's the old, a little bit of fantasy football adage into it. It's like opportunity counts, like running backs, right? Like give me the ball. Like he may be the worst player out of like the 2 or 3, but if he's going to get the ball 20 times as opposed to 12, I want the guy get the ball 20 times. That
100%. No, 100%. So, top 5. Now look, somebody we've never talked about before.
Yeah, so we can cover this one really quick. Go back to second field to get our full take. Second base to get our full second field.
Or second field. That's the old second field.
We're playing a whole other game over there.
Yeah, his value in second base, we talked about it. He's so far above everybody else at second base. If you do draft him, putting him in outfield is doing you a disservice, because you can still get the other people, the Sotos, the Alvarezes, the Roberts of the world, and still have that talent and still play in a position that you absolutely. The key with fantasy, right, is to get positions where you're going to blow everybody else out of the water, and then not play average, but see if you can get some top 20, top 10 guys in other positions. Yeah. And this is the cheat code at second base.
Yeah. So you clearly go get him. He's going to be, high average, a lot of power, loaded offense in that Dodgers organization. The steals aren't what they used to be, but he's not a total zero still. So draft him there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You heard it here first. Mookie Betts is not a total zero. I'm just kidding. All right, number 4. I love me some Corbin Carroll. I mean, when I was looking at the list we talked about earlier, right? Like I was like, I can't believe Alvarez is so low and Soto. And I was like, I'm starting looking like, oh, okay, I can't move that. Then to get to Corbin Carroll, it's a hard stop. I mean, Corbin Carroll to me is just he's Mookie Betts 4 years ago, in the sense of where he's gonna be. I mean, he's not there yet, but he's definitely. I mean, he's there in a lot of aspects.
I probably don't have the same order anymore in my rankings, by the way. These were done a few weeks ago. So my article says one thing, but my rankings, as I've said, even in all the articles, the rankings will change as we dig in a little bit more.
Are you moving Carroll up or down?
Up.
Yeah. And I mean, would it possibly be this number here helping you?
Next guy.
Well, also,
in the steals. Yeah. I mean, look, this guy did something a lot of people don't do. For first season in 25 and 50. That's just unreal.
And he's got 30-60, in his grasp. I mean, there's still a ton of upside to him. His K rate is below 20% with all of that going on. And his Diamondbacks teammates are only getting better. I mean, Moreno, even when he was slumping, he still was doing great behind the plate, but he started picking it up. And you saw what the Diamondbacks can do in the playoffs. That last month in the playoffs, they're an insanely young team. I mean, he's 23 this year, for goodness sakes.
I know.
I mean, sky's the limit here. And frankly, I would put him top 3 easily for me. But where's his ADP? I need to understand where that is right now, because is it top 10? Is it top?
See, so CBS's ADP on him is 28, but so that's the one that was like,
Yeah,
I switch
I'm
this over to
excited.
NFBC, even though we won't say much about them right now, other than that, it's 5.
5. Wow, that's
So he's
nuts.
going very high, and I get it. I mean, you're gonna get a guy who helps you everywhere. You can find. It's hard to find 50 steals, right? Even if he doesn't steal 50, even if he steals 40, it's hard to find 40, even with the new rules. And then you can add 25 to 30 power pop on top of that
with a 354 OBP.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, 362, but they're forecasting 354.
Yeah,
I mean, yes.
The power took a little bit of dive in the second half last year,
right?
But that's fine.
I mean,
also full season.
Exactly.
Give him a little bit of a pass for that.
First full season, and he played 155 games. Still doing everything. I mean, whatever. He's awesome. Okay. So he would be above the next guy then on your new updated. You hear it here first. Rankings.
The rankings on fantasy, the actual official rankings that will be updated. As the offseason keeps going here. On over in Fantasy Six Pack, he is ahead of Fernando Tatis Jr. But there is a reason not that Tatis has fallen very far.
Okay. Is it because because of Carroll being that good, or is it because he lost his protection in Soto, or what's the issue?
I just think obviously, there's still a bit of risk with Tatis, right? I think injuries are still going to play a part. I mean, I wouldn't consider him being super safe in outfield either, but maybe a little bit better than shortstop. But you went from probably, one tough fielding position to another. He's got to run a lot. And things like that. So we see it all the time, right? Outfielders who can't stay healthy come in and do what? Play first base.
Well,
they're not doing that with Tatis, but
yeah. Well, Dennis Lin from The Athletic reported at the beginning of the year that the Padres are thinking highly of moving Tatis to right field, which I love that to keep him healthy, his legs and all that stuff. And obviously not as demanding as center field. That would be phenomenal. But
yeah. But I mean, look, obviously he basically didn't play in for a year and a half. He had the PED scandal. He had, injuries with a wrist and a shoulder or something like that. It was just a mess, man. Came back though, had a phenomenal season, 25 home runs, 29 stolen bases. I think 30-30 is easily in question for him. The reason why Carroll gets the slate boost up is because he's going to steal more bases. And I don't think we're going to look, maybe Tatis has I know you could be looking at 2021 where he hit 42 bombs. Maybe that comes back into play for Tatis. He's still young also. But I think the difference in power that you're going to get between these two isn't quite going to be as big as the difference in speed. And I think the batting averages actually could still be in Carroll's favor.
And that lineup doesn't look nearly as potent as it did. And the reason I bring that up is RBIs, right? So again, we saw kind of things fall apart when he didn't have Soto in there, and kind of having those. And are they going to continue to cut Carroll? What other things are they doing there? I agree with you. Carroll seems like he's in an up trajectory. Tatis seems like he's at a very high level, but it's more static right now, maybe trending upwards, but there's a lot that still needs to be seen there.
Yeah. I mean, look, and I talk about injuries with him. He came out just on fire. And then
he looked mad.
Right. And then he dealt with some nagging injuries down the stretch. It started with an ankle that caused him to miss a couple of games. And I don't know if he just tried to play through it, and that's kind of really all it was. But he wasn't the same player after that. He was in a pretty big slump. And then the Padres just got in a big slump, overall. We're seeing it across the board with these Padres players. Manny's, ADP is down. Tatis, is getting a little more love than a lot of the other Padres. But everybody sort of took a dive in overall value last year on that team. And it could have been that just like they were struggling and there was all this, talk before the season that they were like World Series favorites and that it just wasn't happening. So,
Right.
they're human, pressure happens. And so, but yeah, I think I'm swapping Tatis and Carroll at this point, but I stuck with the list because that's what the article says.
No problem. Before we talk about number 2 and number 1, how close were these two? I mean, on a couple other ones, we've shown both of them. But in your mind, are the next two close? Are they interchangeable, or is it a pretty big gap?
It's a pretty big gap. I mean, I don't think anybody's surprised here. I'm just gonna pop both of them on the board here, but because it's pretty obvious. Julio Rodriguez is number 2, and Ronald Acuna Jr. is number 1.
I mean, Julio Rodriguez, right? Love him. But what Acuna did last year was so insane in the sense of, well, I mean, it's definitely what we expected, but he plays in a loaded Atlanta lineup. But my gosh, every single game, it looked like he was just mashing the ball somewhere. And
we are never going to see a season like that again. Like, I'm sorry. I don't think we're going to 40 and 73. He scored 149 times. I had forgotten just how many runs he scored. And by the way, he hit 337. What?
And just to keep pushing on it, almost 11 walk percentage and 11.4 K rate. That's nuts. I mean, that's Barry Bonds-esque, and I don't say that lightly. I mean that in the sense of, the walk K rate being so just ridiculous. And I'm sure you're going to be like, oh, somebody's going to pull up like, oh, his K rate was like 6. Fine. But what I'm saying is to see 41 home runs, 106 RBIs, and 73 steals, and then to see such a beautiful K and walk rate, it's nuts.
I mean, look, I said this in the article, and I know people are, are going to be like, oh, well, he's never going to do. You don't need him to do that again to be worth the number 1 pick. He could go 35 and 50. He'll still be worth the number 1 pick. Like, he's that good. Like, it doesn't matter. I remember getting him like mid to late first round last year and was like, no way. Like, I got ridiculed for taking him over Ohtani, and I get it. Ohtani's amazing. Like in the Fantasy 6-Pack series, because obviously on Fantrax you can interchange him daily. But I was like, I don't want to have to take Ohtani's bat out of my lineup to go put him at pitcher that day, or like, because if he blows up hitting, or he sucks pitching, like I would have to make that decision. So I was like, I just wanted Acuna, and boy, did that work out. Ohtani's amazing. Look, here's the thing: like, Ohtani's not on any of these lists, right? Because he doesn't have a position.
Right.
He's not going to pitch this year, and he doesn't have a fielding position. He plays DH, so he's not on any of these lists. Just to give you a heads up, he would be, number 10. Right now for me overall as just a utility hitter.
Oh, okay.
And he might in rankings. I actually just personally with the way I draft, like I probably will pass on him just because, like if I was at number 10 and he was sitting there in my face, I'm taking Alvarez over Ohtani just because Alvarez can play a position, and you getting a guy in the top 10 who only plays utility, that's a tough team build.
Now, here's the one thing. Sorry, but one thing that I thought was amazing about Acuna's, season last year is if you, again, looking at kind of the stats, right? His home run to fly ball ratio, you were like, it's high. No, it's not. It's the same thing as 2021 and 2022. But the thing that really blew my mind was his ground ball percentage keeps going up. He had a huge jump from 2021 to 2022, from 31% to 47%, and went to 49%. And his fly ball rate went down. His line drive percentage went up like 2 points, but if you looked at that, you would be like, okay, he probably had maybe an improvement year, but things are all over the place. But then you look at his hard hit percentage.
Oh my god!
And it went, and that's where you figure everything out.
Barrels, 309 hard hit balls, oh my gosh!
Yeah, 46% of the times he hit the ball, it was hard hit. I mean, that's just only 10% soft rate. I'm sorry. Everything with that season is so goofy. video game numbers. It's just nuts. I mean, and the thing is, we talked about Julio Rodriguez, right? J-Rod,
I was going to say, like, let's not discredit Julio Rodriguez here. What he did was awesome, right?
Yeah, don't get wrong.
Here's the thing with Julio. Do we remember what we were talking about Julio in early June last year? Everybody's like, "Oh, you got to trade him. He sucks." People were selling him off, and I was like,
"Oh yeah," we were like,
I'll take it. Give him to me. Like, I'll take it.
Every share of that, right? I mean, a slow start. That's a great thing about fantasy, right? 22, 23-year-olds that are having slow starts and then end up with 32 home runs, 100 plus runs scored, 100 plus RBIs, and 37 stolen bases. Oh, I mean, what a disappointment.
April, he had a 239 average.
Right.
He hit 5 home runs. Okay, so the power was still there, but like the batting average, man, 239, 252, 220. It was bad through June. July, 292, 429, and then it slumped a little back in September. But power was there. The stolen bases really got going, because he was getting on base more, obviously. He turned in a phenomenal season. So, I mean, look, if we could get the second half for the full season, but I mean, is there just something where he can't put it all together? Maybe, but it's still a phenomenal player. Like he's another guy who's gonna, in my opinion, easily go 30, 40, just about every year for the foreseeable future at this point.
And one other thing I just want to point out, if you're in an AL only league, I play in several NL and AL only. Look at this drop off. It goes Julio Rodriguez, and then Kyle Tucker's the next kind of outfielder that you can pick up, or one of the Astros. Yes, it's not a big deal. But what I'm saying is that it's crazy to me how many NL players are in the top 5 before you could kind of do that thing. And so again, I know I'm splitting hairs. Oh God, I have to get a Kyle Tucker, or I have to get Aaron Judge. Oh no, or Juan Soto. But at the same time, it's just crazy to me how the NL kind of has taken over that top 5.
I want to ask you this because I know you play in auction leagues. I do not. I cannot find people who want to sit around for 8 hours and draft fantasy baseball.
I know many a sick person that does that, but go ahead.
But that being said, the question is, because I was asked it yesterday on the PitchCon segment that I did, Nando kind of brought up like auction values, and my kind of strategy was I don't go out and pay for the Ronald Acuñas because they're going to cost you. I mean, what's the budget in baseball leagues? I know in football it's like 200 maybe,
right? So I think it's 260 is kind of the the flat, and then it goes up from there. I'm in some leagues that's 800, and some it just depends, right?
So let's say the standard 260, right? So
right,
Acuna, like, would he? I mean, I have no doubt in my mind someone's going to pay over $100 for him,
right? Yeah,
I don't know how you can do that, having to fill a large fantasy baseball roster.
And that's the same thing as when, back, you think of just trying to, I'm not going to try to do football. I don't even know why I'm even bothering. But the thing is that, it comes down to people do that and somebody gets hurt. And that's exactly what happens. There's so many other positions of scarcity that you need to look at. There's so many other bigger drops. Like, again, the catcher position, if you really want to go for Real Muto or a Rushman, or again, third base is even kind of stacked. Yes, Ramirez is way above, like we talked about, but you still have Austin Riley. So what I like to do is I like to goad people into, trying to pay a third of their entire auction budget for an Acuna. And I pick up in a bunch of different places, other things like, if I get Corbin Carroll at even half the price of Acuna because people have already blown their budget on grabbing Witt and, other areas,
it's worth it.
Right. So that's why, I love auction because I don't have to worry about some lucky, like, where did I get, what position I get? And there's a lot more kind of interest there, but you're right. It is a time commitment, but you can do different things there as well. And when you get those middle rounds, you're like, oh,
or when you don't have any money left and you just got to wait.
Oh, well, what are you talking about? That's what I'm having fun because I'm like, oh, look at you. You only have $3, you only have $30 left. You have to fill 6 positions, but you got Acuna and you got Garrett Cole. Good job. For 75% of your budget. But so I think the thing is outfield is super loaded. If you're in a for outfield league, you still have a chance to pick up even some of these rookies as well. There's a lot of different things here to really play. I could go on auction stuff all day long, but I think the key here again is don't pay up on some of these injury concerned people, because there's so many other players, Robert and Trout and all those people there at the end that if you really want to play lottery ticket, but God, the top of this is so beautiful. I mean, Acuna, Rodriguez, Tatis, Carroll, Betts. I mean,
I'm going to give a little teaser of the cheat sheet here. I'm going to have a lot of Brian Reynolds this season. I have a feeling his ADP is criminally low.
Brian Reynolds everywhere. I'm sorry, I'm just writing that on my skin in a tattoo. Okay, cool. Well, thank you everybody for watching. I know we got a little bit off the rails there, but if you have any questions, please reach out to Joe and I on Twitter, to @DapScout and at F6P_Joe. Always happy to answer questions, and thank you so much for watching.
See you.